Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're listening to today. If you're at home or abroad, if you're watching this, your eyes won't deceive you. It's just me for today. Jack Neville. Matt is a bit under the weather. There's no major issues with him. He should be back in order for next week. I know the podcast has had a lot of setbacks in the last few weeks with my own troubles with my back and I suppose a lot of things going on. But yeah, just me for today. There's a lot to look back on. You obviously had that dramatic penalty shootout win for Limerick against Clare last week in Ennis to put him into the Munster semi-final. During the week, we did under-20s win a first under-20 Munster title, a ninth overall in the under-21 stakes, would say that grade. Last night, unfortunately, the minor footballers fell short of Tipperary in the one season to end. And obviously this week we have a huge game with Limerick hosting Tipperary in the two Gaelic grounds in the Munster Championship. So we'll go through all that next week. We'll have Matt back. We'll go into those in depth. We'll have Pat Rannan to tell us about what happened in Ennis and so much more. But for today, we'll just keep things ticking over. We'll go through each of those games and look back at them in full.
The impression of the game you get out of it, what you put into it's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
Not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word court today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kieran Curry. Curry leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
I suppose as well, for those that are worried it'll just be me talking the whole time, we'll also have words from Mullins, the Limerick Under-20 manager, and Darren Horan, who was involved with the minor football side. But I suppose we will start with Ennis last week. And we had the first ever penalty shootout in the championship. Whether you think it's right or wrong that a game goes to that and a championship game is decided by that means, that's your own opinions. I don't know, is there a fairer way to do it? It certainly takes a lot of courage. I heard a lot of people say a free taking competition from outside the D would be more applicable, but as it stands, Limerick are through. The game as a whole, obviously not being able to go to the game, not able to sit or in a car or stand or even sit. So I was listening to the radio to Live 95, so I shouted out to them. Sounded like Limerick were well within it against the seasoned Division 2 side, and I know Clare, like Limerick, are predominantly hurling, but you can't say what's done with Clare over the last few years. Like Billy Lee, Clare just ahead of the curve in that regard. They've been Division 2 for 5 or 6 years now, very rarely in danger. This year they picked up wins against Down and Offaly fairly quickly just to kind of cement their place. Poor end to the campaign, but then on the flip side, Limerick lost to Louth in the league final. So I mean, neither team was coming into the game off a high. For Limerick, obviously, but the Louth game would have been fresh in the memory. Clare started brightly below there, according to all the reports, and then Brian Fanning did what he's threatened to do so often. I mean, anyone that has played knows, and I think it's in Paz article this week, this I'm going on an adventure meme from, I think it's The Hobbit, that Brian Fanning, when he gets ball in hand, whether he's at fullback, wing back, wherever, he is going forward. And the whole length of the field, I've seen it back on the Sunday game, the whole length of the field cut in the inside, and the finish is, I suppose, it goes unnoticed because of the run that Brian was able to run the length of the field, cut in. It was like left-legged, slotted into the corner. That put Limerick 1-9 to 1-6 ahead at the half. They had the advantage of a breeze by all accounts. And then as the second half came on, Clare slowly built back into the game. And I suppose for Limerick, there was that worry that we saw it against Westmeath, and we saw it in another game that they just kind of waned this moment. Now we did see against Fermanagh, drove on. Against Louth was the other one that just in the second half, I don't think it's tired bodies, because to be fair to Adrian O'Brien, he has them in tip-top shape, and we didn't up the other day at the 5 penalties, and one of the comments was on the condition of the players. But Limerick started to win. Clare grew into it, I suppose, having home advantage, being the favourites. The Limerick probably their shells a small bit, but having a substitute like Robbie Burke to come on is something that Limerick haven't had the luxury of going back through the years. We've made a load about the absentees, the likes of Danny Neville, Gilly, Seamus O'Carroll, these kind of lads, Sean McSweeney, another one, the two Sean McSweeneys, that have been real scoring threats for Limerick that we're without, and we can still call on the likes of Robbie Burke to come on, and Robbie hit a brilliant free to level it, and the radio, it didn't sound like it was that far out, but looking back, beautiful long-range strike. So with the angle, you're looking at a 45, essentially, straight over the bar into extra time. Again, Burke is the man there in the first half, gets the goal, go ahead, but as Clare do, they'll really back in, and eventually it was Owen Cleary. Like Burke, in normal time, Owen Cleary was the man with the ball for a free for the final kick of extra, and then we're into unknown territory. You're talking about a penalty shootout, the first ever one in a senior championship game. I know we've had them at underage games, but this is different. This is the big time at home. But at that stage, I rang one of my friends below there, shout out to Sam Duggan, and he FaceTimed me to watch the penalties because listening was just torturous. But talking like Billy Lee said afterwards, the 5 that he had in mind were the 5 that stood up, and I think it just shows another sign to this Limerick team that they had the bravery to step up. I know myself, I've taken penalties in soccer shootouts and missed them, and it's a horrible feeling, and that's just the local game. Like, I mean, this is Red Heat Championship. Limerick haven't beaten Clare since 2009. They'd lost Clare 5 times in that time. They looked like they were dead and buried in normal time. They had buried Clare in extra time. So to have that courage, and there's the brilliant photo of Ian Corbett, and anyone that's watching today will see it. It's just this one here with ball in hand, one-handed, just was there seems to be little to no fear with Ian, and Ian was number 1, stood up, slotted it away, as I saw on my phone. Brilliant penalty taker. We've known that. He scored against Waterford in the championship last year. We've seen him with Newcastle. That's you want your captain. I think Donald is the sole captain this year with the advent of joint captains being gone. But Keane Corbett was captain there, standing up, taking the first one. Keane O'Dean then Limerick came back, took his over the bar. Look, if I was facing Donald O'Sullivan, I wouldn't be too confident myself. Then you have Robbie Burke again, his second goal of the game, and he only on the field about half an hour or so into the miss again. Brian Donovan steps up, and we know how good Brian Donovan is at soccer. So again, slots it away. Clare scored their third, but up to James Naughton then to finish the job, and that's exactly it. And from playing soccer with James at school level, I can easily say he's the best player I've ever played with, and I've played with an awful lot of good players. But James, if he wasn't playing football at Limerick, he would be playing top level soccer. But he was in a Limerick football jersey the other night to seal it, and with those brilliant scenes, and it's scenes we're becoming far more accustomed to in Limerick across both codes, but especially in football, scenes like we saw in the Gaelic grounds when promotion was secured against Fermanagh. We saw it again, and it was brilliant to see. And there's so much to take from the game, and we'll talk to Pat next week. We'll talk to Matt. We'll go into it more in depth. I'm just running back through because you can't not talk about it. That's just the simple matter of it. But for Limerick, it's 4 years in a row of Munster Championship win. 2019, that big surprise win against Tipperary, it's fair to say. 2020 and 2021. You had Waterford, it's a Clare side who were the favourites, and you're kind of trying to get to their level, and you pull off the job, and you're into a fourth successive semi-final. Like, I mean, that's gone under the radar completely, that it's a fourth successive semi-final. Football was in the doldrums when Billy Lee took it over, and 5 years later, you 4 successive Munster semi-finals. The job is now to go that one step further, and we will be looking forward to that game with Tipp. Tipp beat Waterford. Expect to beat Waterford. Tipp were in Croke Park the same day as Limerick. They have that pedigree as well, so it'll be another tight game. But that's one to look forward to next week. But a huge congratulations to Billy Lee and his side. Like, just incredible scenes. I suppose during the week we the 20s and the minors, but we will look forward, before we get into that, I want to finish with that, we will look forward to this weekend's game. The Limerick Hurlers are back in action, 2 point win over Cork and that win over Waterford. We spoke about it last week, myself and Matt, in depth, to do it without Keane Lynch, without Kyle Hayes, without Peter Casey, without Seamus Flanagan, against what are being thrown. Incredible stuff. But Limerick have to go again. And make no bones about it, this is a potential banana skin against Tipperary. Limerick are red hot. I can't remember a time when Limerick were so heavily favoured going into a game against Tipperary. I don't think any of us will ever forget that drubbing in 2009 in Croke Park, where they put 6 goals past Limerick. I suppose that really was the catalyst for this current Limerick side, because John Kiley was there. Remember the 96 team that lost the All-Ireland final and said this can't go on, and the rest is history. But Tipperary, their backs are against the wall. If they lose, they're out, they're gone. There's a strong possibility they're gone as it is. But you can't play like that. Tipperary are a proud team. Colin Bonner is a proud manager. He'll want his side to go out. Now they're dogged by injuries as well. Looking at that injury list, John McGrath is ruled out for the rest of the year. Jason Ford and James Quigley have both been ruled out. We saw good Jason Ford was last year against Limerick. Really put Limerick to the pin of their collars. Queeve probably should have got the job done, but for a Limerick onslaught. But for the merit of Sunday's game at 2:00 in the 2 Scalet Crowns, you'll be looking for a crowd again. Real good feeling around Limerick GA at the moment. You want to get out and support the team. Limerick will be heavy favoured. It'll be interesting to see who Kiley actually has at his disposal. Obviously, Colin O'Neill came in for Keane Lynch the last. Looks the obvious replacement again. Conor Boylan started in the place of Kyle Hayes the last day. The reports from Kyle are good, is what I'm hearing. There's a strong chance he'll play. Seamus Flanagan is definitely getting closer. He could have them. He could put him on. He's still a bit off in defence. It's been the same 7, but I mean, there's room, there's options there to go for different teams. In Adam English run out, give him a test championship, but look, they have an All-Ireland final to look forward to, and I don't think John Kiley is going to do that to them when they're probably not at that level yet. It will be more for exposure, but yeah, very interesting to see how John will go with his team to be named tonight. Will be back in. I suspect to be named at full forward, and that Colin O'Neill will be at 11. Now, look, he being John Kiley, of course, has loads at his disposal. He could go Pat Ryan in at full forward. He could continue with. He's Dave Reedy, who can play between the lines. He has just so many options. He could go for the likes of Adam English. Could move. Darren Donovan is well accustomed to playing in the forwards for a club. And for Mary I and someone like Robbie Hanley or someone like that. Like, we've been thrown curveballs before. There's nothing to say we won't get another one this weekend. The game itself, yeah, Limerick are huge favourites, and rightly so. When you look at the power against Cork, it was just a demolition job. One, pulling up by 11 points. It could have easily been the 16 that it was in the All-Ireland final the previous year. Now we see with Cork in the meantime against Clare, probably haven't got it right, whatever the reason. They just haven't got it right this year. They have a chance to regroup, and as myself and Matt were talking about a while ago when he rang to say just that he wasn't able to go on today, Munster final berth. A Limerick win guarantees their progression. There is a chance that Limerick win, and if Waterford beat Clare and Clare beat Limerick, it'll go all those, and say Waterford and Clare win, their other 3 teams will be on 6 points. It'll come down to points differential. That is the only way Limerick won't be in Munster final, if they win this weekend. If Limerick win this weekend and Clare beat Waterford, Limerick are into Munster final. If Limerick win and beat Clare, they're into Munster final. Tip hold out hope that a win for them and a win against Cork will see some sort of chances in progressing, but it's looking highly unlikely in that regard. It's been a fixture that has been dominated by Limerick in recent years, the last 5 meetings. But just to go through them briefly, in 2018, the first advent of the round robin, Limerick were obviously crowned All-Ireland champions, but that game taking place in May, Limerick champions 3 months later. I don't think you would have got a single soul in the Gaelic Crowns that day that said, yeah, that's an All-Ireland winning team out there. Obviously, the players themselves, John Kiley, would have known him. There was a lot of them coming up from 15 and 17 won titles, and there was great hope for them teams, don't get me wrong. But 123 to 214, Jason Ford, I think, got 2-9 that day for Tipperary. It was a one-man show. But at the other end, we saw the likes of Keane really, I suppose he was hard here at the end of the year, really stamp his authority. Aaron Gillan was starting, he was on the freeze, which we've seen since Graham Mulcahy was on fire. People had written him off going into that game. Because Limerick they were kind of ahead for most of it, and then Jason Ford hit back with goals at real crucial times. Limerick were ahead by 3 twice, and he back with those goals. But yeah, 123-214. We know how the rest of the year. 19, Liam Sheedy was back. It was a different Tipperary. We met in round 4 of the Munster Hurling Championship. Now, Limerick's place in the knockout stages wasn't guaranteed, but was likely. But Tipperary won 122 to 21 points. Limerick rested. Well, I don't know if rested or dropped. It was a debate at the time. But Keane Lynch, Gerard Hegarty, Declan Hannon, and Graham Mulcahy didn't start that day. So there was a couple of players Limerick were out, and they were flat in the day. But there's no two ways about it. Tipperary were deserving winners, and they go on to win All-Ireland. At the end of the day, that's the scenario. But 2 weeks after that game, we had that Munster final. 226 to 214. Many people will forget that day in the Gaelic Crowns, sun-soaked. It was brilliant day. Again, nip and tuck in the first half. Limerick had the likes of Lynch and them back for this game, but yeah, nip and tuck. Tipperary were within Limerick. They were ahead for a lot of the first half. Seamus Callan got a goal, but it was 111 to 1-9 to Limerick at half time. You'll recall Peter Casey's brilliant goal to Aaron Gillan first time. But yeah, brilliant goal, brilliant game. And then the second half, Limerick just tore them apart, essentially. John McGrath did give a bit of hope to Tip with a good what goes unnoticed on that day. Nicky Quaid made a brilliant save on Seamus Callan. He was 1-on-1. Callan scored a goal again that year. He had caught his goal already, but I don't know how Nicky Quaid kept the ball out, but he didn't. He's done it so many more times before and after. But yeah, Kyle Hayes got the goal towards the end. Peter Casey flick set him through, and that was that. Limerick were Munster champions. Now what happened against Kilkenny, we all know what happens there. And look, that Kilkenny game can be, I suppose, some sort of warning to Limerick that when you're at your highest, you're your most vulnerable. Tipperary going gung-ho like Kilkenny did that day, and Limerick were caught, and Tipperary won the All-Ireland final. Like, continue on the trend. Limerick versus Tipperary 2020 in the rain, the lashing rain in Páirc Uí Chaoimh behind closed doors. It's hard to think that was 2 years ago at this stage. Seems like a lifetime ago. But it was 323 to 217 in the end. Limerick probably should have won by more. Again, tip goals at crucial times keep them in it. Jake Morris got one, Jake won after 20 minutes. But Limerick, it was Aaron Gillan's day. He got 2-6. He just ran wrong. Aaron do that numerous times, and Seamus Flanagan came on as a substitute, and and got that loop and goal agreement or not. Remains to be seen. But yeah, another win for Limerick, another Munster final. That was 2 on the trot. Then the third Munster final in a row was last year's one. And I mean, like, you'll never ever long. I think there might have been a couple of hundred at that game, or a couple of thousand maybe. But first half, Tipperary on fire, and that famous one of Liam Sheedy at half time going like this, and deservedly so. His team were 2-16-12 at half time. Like, we rave about Limerick's 3-18 scored in the first half of the All-Ireland final, but to score 2-16 like is very equally impressive in extreme heat below in Park Queeve. In the highlights package, Marty Morris comments that it's 3. Two very similar goals, long puckouts from Hogan go all the way through. Jake Morris gets one, and John McGrath gets another. 2 cracking finishes. And then in the third quarter, like, the Limerick blitzkrieg just comes. Aaron Gillan hadn't started. He comes on. He's instrumental to that first goal, a shot that's blocked that Seamus Flanagan gets on the end of. And even though Limerick were still 7-8 points behind, you just could tell that the momentum had swung completely. They outscored them 10 to a point in that third quarter. Scoring 110 in 17 minutes is ridiculous scoring, but that's John Kiley's side for you. And then you had Kyle Hayes' goal. You don't need reminding of it, but that was the best goal I've ever seen. Surely it's the best goal they've ever seen. So Limerick have pretty much dominated this fixture in recent times. That one meeting in 2019 aside, when there wasn't really much on offer, Tipperary were true. They just wanted to lay down a marker. They did, but they got the response 2 weeks previously. Again, it'll be interesting to see how both teams line out. Obviously, Jesse Ford has become Tipperary's go-to man. Debut out him. Quigley at the back has been solid. The man tasked with Aaron Gillan, although Aaron Gillan is reaching that territory where he's a two-man job, like Dave Clifford is in the football. But Limerick can take a huge step towards Munster final this Sunday. They can book their play series. If Limerick win, they can't be caught for third place at the least. They will definitely qualify for the All-Ireland stages again, which it'll be a 100% record for the round robin in the third year of it. You'd have to fancy Limerick. There has been some talk of that 2009 victory in the run-in. That won't be on the players' minds. Obviously, none of them were involved back then. But it was a very, very harrowing kind of defeat for Limerick. So if you gave John Kiley a 1-point win in the morning, he'd take it, because that's what it's all about. But you'd have to fancy Limerick are 7 or 8 points favourites at least. This Tipperary side all against Waterford the first day, and we're probably unlucky to lose out. But against Clare the last day, they couldn't get going. Now we could see down the line that's Clare wouldn't let them go. Limerick against Clare is next weekend in Ennis. And that one's mouth-watering, but Limerick definitely tipping your hat towards Limerick. They'll go in as favourites. They don't mind being favourites. They've shown that in recent years. But yeah, Limerick seem to be favourites. That game throws in luck, as I said. Tickets are available online only. That's a debate for another day. Moving on to the under-20s, and Wednesday night, Diarmuid Mullins and his side exacted revenge for last year's final loss to Cork. There was 8 starters remaining from that team, and I suppose it was a number of those 8 that really kick-started the win. In the end, 125 to 218 should have been a lot more comfortable. I think that's probably a good thing for Mullins and his side with All-Ireland final to go into. But a couple of bad wides at the end from players that were shining throughout. But as I said, it was kind of the older, more experienced lads that stood up. This is all about Colin O'Neill, and we'll get into that in a while. But Adam English's goal after a couple of minutes, just daylight robbery is what TG Carr coined it. Tipperary lad is picking up the ball, and William English has it pickpocketed into the back of the net and scored 2 savage points, and afterwards just showed what he's all about. And then he didn't get on the score sheet for the remainder of the game, but the work rate from English in the second half was brilliant. Aidan O'Connor scoring stakes. He scored 9, 6 of those are from frees. But as I've said so many times before, anyone that's seen Aidan O'Connor, like, he is just a score machine. Kind of like Aaron Gillan is he's out at wing for the 20s. Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if he's in the corner when he gets to call up to the seniors, because it's when he gets to call up to the seniors, not if he gets called up. He's just that good of a player. Um, O'Brien, he's 18 at max. He was minor last year, so that means he's 18 years. He's 18 at some stage this year. He could still be 17. Son of Adrian O'Brien, the strength and condition coach for the footballers, and you can see it with Shane. He's a strong man already. He's a hand like very few I've seen at that age. He's such a knack of getting in front and leaving his man for dead, because his man commits, seeing the ball, and in a second Brian has it gone, and he's scored 5 from play again. That's 10 points from play in the semi and final for a lad first year out of minor. It's just incredible. I suppose unsung then at the back, number 5, Keane Scully is the same. He was centre back captain of that minor team last year. He didn't start the first day, and I would like to have seen him start, but he's been brilliant. He was one, I wrote an article there before the U20 Championship, 5 to watch. Shane O'Brien and Keane Scully were definitely 2 of the ones. I said, not to toot my own horn here, I think, but like it's clear as day, those lads were always going to make an impact. He was brilliant. Hurley is the quintessential centre back. Just Declan Hannon-esque like ability to read play. As I said, he's always in the background. He's sniffing out danger. He just knows where to be. And we saw with UL, like to be centre back of that UL freshers team this year just shows kind of how well he's taught in Limerick circles and college circles. He was centre back on back-to-back minor teams, so he would have been 16 years of age. Centre back team doesn't faze him. He's bulked up a lot. He's a real strong man. Outside him, then Colin Coughlin. We've said loads about Colin Coughlin. I have a full article dedicated to kind of all those players, because there's really not one of them you could look at and say, yeah, that's their level. 20s is where they'll peak, because there's so much room for this team. There's a brilliant ceiling there. Good few lads have more years under their belt that we will be seeing them again. Conor Hanley-Clark in goals has just been phenomenal all year. Now, he did concede 2 goals. There's nothing you could do about him, but he saved so much more. His puck outs are bang on the money. Saved Limerick the first day with a good few saves. And that first day against Clare, when you're down by 3 points with a minute left, you're thinking, we have to go to the home of the All-Ireland champions to save our season, and it might not be good enough. And up steps Cathal O'Neill, and you'd feel sorry for him. He'll get his medal, and deservedly so, because even though he played for only 1 game, without him, Limerick wouldn't have won the Munster Championship. But he was there. He looked to be Diarmuid Mullins' right-hand man from watching the game at home. You would have seen it. A huge man already. You would have thought maybe he was part of the background team if you didn't know what the face is underneath the helmet. But he was there in the midst of all the celebrations, and deservedly so. But I'm sure himself and Diarmuid Mullins would love if he was eligible to play for the final. But that's not the case. Good to see Paddy O'Donovan get a score. Probably lacked a bit of match rustiness with a few errant shots. Like anyone that knows Paddy knows he's a sharp shooter. He's used for Diarmuid Mullins. Diarmuid Hegarty didn't talk about it at all. He scored 1-3 in last year's final and wasn't. He's obviously injured. He could be a boost for Diarmuid Mullins and Liam Lynch, starter for me. If he was fit, he injured his knee unfortunately at the end of the last year with the club. He's another one, but it overall, like, first title at under 20 level. It's a title in 6 years at that kind of grade to go 2015, 2017 sides. We saw what they did, like, just off the top of my head, from the All-Ireland winning team last year. Sean Finn had 2 All-Ireland medals, so did Barry Nash. Dina Burns captained the 15 team. In midfield, Darren Donovan was on the 15 team. Tom Morrissey had 2 of them. Keane Lynch had 2. Rod Hegarty was on the team. Peter Casey and Flanagan and Aaron Galland, the full forward line, all had 2. So it just goes to show that if the right plans are put in place, now they're a magical group, that 2015, 2017 kind of core, but doesn't no reason to say this under 20 side won't be the same. As I said, me and Matt will touch on it more next week. There's loads of previews and reviews and opinion pieces on that team. But just a word for Diarmuid Mullins, because final in 2020 couldn't get the job done against an unreal Cork side, but to come back and win 12 months later is a testimony to the side, and absolutely delighted was the wording he used in the aftermath.
Absolutely delighted to come out with the win.
Yeah, absolutely delighted. Great game, tight game. Could have gone either way. I think we were just a better team over the hour, but not much in it. Tipp came back at us really strongly and got it back to 2 points. A couple of throw lads to be able to come on and tag a few points on to win the game. So it's just super. Look, 2 teams that won 3 games to get to the final, and we won tonight. So I think, look, it stands to reason we're the best team in the competition now, which is fantastic.
We got that fantastic start. Led from the very end.
Yeah, we wanted to start quickly. We wanted to start quickly in all of the games. We were a little bit sluggish against Clare. Started okay, but didn't take our chances. Against Cork, reasonable for the first 10 or 15 minutes. Against Waterford, I thought we were poor in the first 10 or 15 minutes. But we did start. Adam got a great goal. We looked in control, kind of at 1-4 to 2 points, and we just didn't push on then after that. But look, 7 points at half time was a good lead. Probably wasn't a lead that you could say, well, you could be anyway comfortable about it. And we started the second half okay, but you go up the game. But Tipperary, a great team as well.
Overall in the championship, you mentioned there you beat the 4 teams in Munster, so a bit of satisfaction in that, I'm sure.
I know, it's huge satisfaction because we've had a lot of challenges. A lot of players from 2 or 3 years ago. Obviously, the Cahill situation that he can't play, but I think there's been a huge, spirit among the group. The 24 that togged, plus the additional lads that were there. There's great competition between the places, and I suppose that's down to the great work that's been done in academy level, led by Paul Brown and Pat Donnelly and Joe McKenna, and then all of my management team. Richie's fantastic coach, along with Tommy and John. And going around that, so it's just a real collective effort, Jerome. And I think we've players that have had to stand up, and they've stood up in the last couple of weeks, and hopefully now we can prepare properly and give it a serious effort now in an All-Ireland final.
And you mentioned the academy, and I suppose you were minor champions 3 years ago. You come along and win the 20 then. It shows that steady progress, doesn't it?
It does. And look, we were disappointed last year. We were drawn with Cork down in Cork, of very good Cork in that game as well. But I think Cork were better than us on the night, whereas I thought tonight we were a little bit more mature in terms of winning that game. But it's not easy to win Munster Championships. And look, this bunch have been in 4 finals between minor and 20s, and it's not a bad strike rate.
I suppose the new format this year, Munster champions straight into an All-Ireland final, so Kilkenny or Wexford now in just over 2 weeks' time.
Well, my record in semi-finals hasn't been great, so I lost 2 of those, so I'm kind of happy with this year's format into the final. But look, Kilkenny knocked out Galway, and everyone would have had Galway, probably Cork, and maybe ourselves having a great chance at this championship. So they beat Galway. They're going to be really, really strong opposition if they come through. And Wexford have a good side as well. So that'll be very, very. I'm just happy to be able to sit back and watch it and see and plan. But look, I'm sure the All-Ireland final will be like all the games in Munster, Jerome, point or two.
That was Diarmuid Mullins, the Limerick manager. I suppose we often praise John Kiley, Paul Conner on this medium, and Diarmuid Mullins, as he said, that's 4 Munster finals now in as many years. 3 victories. The minors, obviously, in 2019 and 2020, and the 2022. As he said, an All-Ireland final. Look forward to, and we look forward to that. We'll know the outcome, or we'll know who we'll be playing, because Kilkenny and Wexford meet this Saturday. So when Matt is back, we'll look for detail at that All-Ireland final. Obviously, there was some disappointment this week for the Limerick minor footballers, losing the Phase 1 final to Tipperary, and I suppose they did face a really strong Tipperary side. 1-14 to 1-4 finished in Mallow. A third quarter flurry kind of just turned the game, and then Limerick had to go searching for goals, and that's how these things pan out. And if you don't get the goals, the scoreline doesn't really reflect the outcome of the game. To 1-7 or 1-8 in the first round. So you knew the pedigree of Tipperary coming in. They had beaten Waterford and Clare, but so had Limerick. And Shawnee Buckley made the point, it's great for those players. Maybe a few years ago, they would have lost that game to Tipperary, and they got 4 games in the Limerick jersey this year that'll stand them. They beat Clare and hit the ground running, and then against Waterford just knew what the task was and went out and got the job done. Against Tipperary, Tommy O'Connor opened the scoring for Tipperary, and Bobby Smith, who has been brilliant all year, replied. But then Tipp hit 4 in a row, looked like pulling away. You would have scored then from our Tommy Ryan, who was brilliant all game, really strong runner at centre forward, and Limerick had a chance then with a penalty when full forward was dragged down. But unfortunately for Bobby Smith, the penalty was saved. Kind of turned momentum. Tipperary were leading 5-2 at the half. They got the first score of the second half. Limerick were down to 14, a black card for young Downey. But Limerick replied then with an Aidan O'Shea goal, and he has proved huge dividends for Limerick, and he's underage again next year, and he's been one of the standout players. There's been a lot of standout players on that team, but he got a goal. Limerick were within 1, but Tipperary then reel off 1-5 in a row. 2, and game looks to be out of reach. Aidan O'Shea gets a Limerick score, but from there, Limerick are looking for goals, can't quite manage to find them. Tipperary keep a strong Tipperary team. They've played 4, they've won 4. They'll play the losers of Cork and Kerry in a fortnight's time. Cork and Kerry play next weekend. The winner that goes straight through to a Munster final. All in all, it's disappointing for Limerick. This Tipperary team, if they can play like they did over the first 4 rounds, they will give Kerry or Cork an awful lot of it. Could even get the win, could get the Munster final, could win a Munster final. We've seen Tipperary win Munsters at this age in years gone, and it'll show where Limerick football is. Limerick football got to our first Munster final in 23 years last year, and we're with Cork for 50 minutes, and just again a late flurry pulled the Rebels over the line. But Limerick football, the academy is in place, the right people are there, like Shawnee Buckley, who's done it all with the adult team. He was involved with that team. I know Andy Lane is involved with teams. As we said, there's good people in there. Limerick football is definitely grand. Darren Horan is another one. We'll hear from him in a minute. And I think for Limerick at minor level, it's about getting game time into these players. John Keane obviously will be disappointed as manager that they couldn't just get into phase and get into the Munster proper, we'll say, with the big 2 of Kerry and Cork. But there's no reason for a lot of these lads to go on to the 20s team next year. Limerick 20s this year obviously got to Munster semi-final, and we're starting at all grades now, no longer getting beaten in the first round of the quarterfinals. You're often seeing their names besides semi-finals. That's proven to be troublesome a lot of time from senior down to minor, but we're getting there. Limerick football in the right place, and I'll play the interview with Darren Horan as he looks back on the game. But disappointing, yes, of course, but overall positive for Limerick that they got to this phase 1 final. It's not the Munster final such, but it's a second in 2 years, and look, the building blocks are being laid for Limerick football.
Horan post match here. Darren, thoughts after that defeat for your Chargers?
Yeah, look, I guess we felt that we had a couple of good wins against Clare and Waterford. Just didn't work for us. Obviously the effort, as it has been for the whole year, was fantastic. The lads worked really, really hard. Unfortunately, I guess just the accuracy wasn't there today, and that was probably the story of the game for us.
Yeah, they never give up. To be fairness, they battled to the very end. It shows a lot of character in the group that happened. Things weren't going their way. Would you say that was something about the side that you could be proud of? Absolutely. Yeah. Look, I suppose we kind of talked about kind of 3 pillars at the start of the year, and one was preparation, the other one was work ethic, and the last one was unity. And lads just pitched from start to finish of the year. Massive commitment for all the training sessions, and every single game. One thing that we could never question is the work ethic and the fact that they stuck together till the very end. Yeah, and even when you were struggling there in the game, putting O'Shea in full forward, and he was causing damage, and it was a good move from your part. Yeah, I'll credit Shawnee for that one. So yeah, I guess we felt that Aidan, he posed a kind of a different type of problem, and if we could get the ball into him, he would cause
You can ball into Aiden and he'll do something with it, and he's a fantastic talent for Limerick, and I think he's going to do very, very well.
And just a word on Tipp, they were the farm side, I suppose, out of the 14 group that she played. They beat you in the first day out. Probably a lot closer than the scoreboard would have given you credit for tonight, but how do you think they'll get on going forward after meeting them tonight?
Yeah, Tipp are a good side. I think they've got a really good spine, a good centre back, two good midfielders that are very well able to catch a ball over their heads, as well as good ball players, and they've got some very, very good forwards. So look, I give them a fighting chance against Cork or Kerry. I suppose we don't really know what's ahead of them, but ultimately, we give them the utmost respect and in the day.
4 games. There isn't many minor teams in Limerick that get to have the 4 games over a spell. Usually it's 1 or 2 games and you're done. So even defeat is a lot tonight. But what's your thoughts on a team at minor level from Limerick getting to Championship days out?
Massively important. Overall we had 13 games this season, and it's just momentum. It's character building for the lads. It gives us an opportunity to work with them from game to game and try to identify issues, and then kind of work with them for the lads. It became a real season for them. It just bound the group together, and it just gave them an opportunity to express themselves and try to be as good as they can be.
And for their development going forward, then, what would you hope would be the step for them now? We're in May now. I suppose a few of those lads will be maybe too young for 20s, and a few, I suppose, will be still on the panel, but won't be back in for minors for another 6 or 7 months. So what's your hope there for that group?
Look, I think it's important that we keep that group together. So I suppose they may go back into their club systems, and they'll certainly be on file, I guess, with the Limerick county teams, or county football. There's quite a few that will certainly they'll make an appearance at 20s and seniors. And the hope, as with all academy teams, the hope is that you develop players. If you win a few games, that's a bonus. But really, what we're trying to do under 20s and the senior teams. So that's it. And
I suppose tonight, in some ways, is the end of the journey for the group. We'll say from 14s to 17s. You've been a part of it all along the way, as has Shawnee and John Keane and other lads at the back room. And I suppose, is there any message that you take away from it? Any words from your own journey, or from even the journey through the academy up to tonight and this year?
Yeah, look, I think the academy system that's in place is, it's excellent. It gives us as coaches an opportunity to develop as well as the players. It allows you to get to know the players, over a number of years, and that's really, really important. It's important for momentum. It's important for just continuity from year to year, so you can kind of build on that development. I think we've got a lot of good things in place here, and I think it will bear fruit in the future. And there's a massive amount of work that's going on in the backgrounds there. And I think from our perspective, I'd like to kind of mention John Keane. I think he's been the work that he does in the background. It's an absolute credit to him, and it goes probably unseen a lot of the time. And similarly, Shawnee, just a massive amount of preparation for the sessions. And I think all in all, the management team have got on very, very.
That was Darren Horan there talking about the Limerick minors, and I think he sums it up brilliantly there. Just the importance of getting game time at that age. I won't keep you for much longer. I know, but 43 minutes is a lot longer than I thought this was going for, but it was such a brilliant week for Limerick. On the website, just looking there, there's preview for the Hurling this weekend. There's Paz article on the Clare game. There's a look at the similarities between that under-20s team and the current senior one, and I think that's the narrative going around at the moment. There's obviously post-match interviews, pre-match stuff. There's just a load going on there on the website for anyone that content, but that's 3/4 of an hour in the book is plenty for you to listen to me. Best luck to John Kiley and his team. Very interesting to see how they line out. Will we get another curveball? Main thing is get into that All-Ireland series, and then have the chance to have Clare in Ennis to book that Munster final spot, because that could be the Munster final. We've seen Clare, they have come on an awful lot since the league, so that kind of shadow boxing we had with Tipp in 2019. But for now, the focus is Limerick, 2:00 on Sunday in the 2 Gaelic rounds against Tipperary. A huge thank you to anyone that listened. Matt will be back next week. Don't worry. I'm closer to full fitness. And it'll be an all-around better show. But for now, thank you to everyone that listened, and we will be in touch again soon. Thank you.
Fresh in the game, you get out with what you put into. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
Not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods, and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Johnny Buckley. To do that to Tommaso Sheahy, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word court today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time